Hey there, CJ Math students, and welcome to Note 7.1. Before I get started, I just want to take a quick look at the WOS sheet so everybody's on the same page. So a highlight here, you only need 30 minutes of ST Math this week to do at some point during a study hall or a math lab. And then we'll have a test on Monday, and this test will go over both Unit 6 and this Unit 7. So pay very close attention. This week it's going to be kind of a lot of information, almost an information dump, but it's actually a lot related to the equations and inequality kind of setup that we've been working with for the past couple of months. So key idea here that is perimeter is the distance around the outside of the shape. So you're going to count all the numbers on the outside of a shape to add up the perimeter of something. Whereas area is the number of square units inside of shape, so all the space inside of the shape. And in that case, you'll be multiplying in some very specific numbers on the outsides of shapes to get what is on the inside. If you think about it, perimeter is like a fence, all the stuff around the outside of something, and area is like the grass on the inside of a yard or something like that. So I'm calling this your geometry toolbox. And basically what I've done is tried to take most of the shapes that we'll be working with and give you the formulas that will help you find the area and perimeter. Now, formula is actually kind of a fancy name for equations. Basically, we'll just be working with equations for these shapes. So you'll have an expression such as 2 times the length plus 2 times the width, and it will be equal to your perimeter. Or area is equal to length times width, or area is equal to base times height. So you'll notice a lot of different variables, but you'll always have at least a little bit of the information to get the area or perimeter. So a couple things here. Width, or W, stands for width, and length stands, or the L stands for length. That's a cursive L. This can also just be rewritten as base and height. So B stands for base, usually the thing that the shape can lie flat on, and H stands for height, how tall something is from a right angle. For squares, S and S obviously stand for sides. And it kind of makes sense here that you could say that the perimeter is 4s, or just add up all the sides, or just take one of the sides and multiply them 4, or s squared. Remember, this is s times s, not s times 2. All right. For a parallelogram, that's a shape that has 2 parallel sides. So these sides will be equal, and these sides will be equal. Those dashed lines usually tell you that sides are equal. Again, B is for base, H is for height, and notice usually the height is on the inside of the shape. A dotted line usually means height. I could easily draw this shape again and put the dotted line on the outside, something like this, right, and say, okay, there's my right angle, and this be my height. That is still the height, right? Now, I would not include that number when trying to find my perimeter because you only include the numbers on the outside, because perimeter is a measure of the distance around a shape. For a triangle, your formula is base times height divided by 2, or otherwise known as 1/2 base times height. And why does that make sense? Because basically I can take any triangle that I ever make and I can make a rectangle out of it. So you can think of a triangle as half of a rectangle, and if you go back to the rectangle formula, it's length times width, or base times height. So if you just imagine taking this rectangle and cutting it in half, you'd get a triangle out of it, right? So that's why it's base times height, base times height divided by 2, or 1/2 times base times height. A trapezoid is going to be kind of our most complicated one. There are multiple ways to write the formula, but it's basically 1/2 of the first base plus the second base grouped together and then multiplied the height. So I could say base 1 plus base 2 grouped together multiplied by height divided by 2, or I could do 1/2 of the height and then times base 1 plus base 2. Remember, when you have a number next to parentheses, it means multiplication. Usually what I like to do is I like to see, is it easier to take half of the height or half of base 1 plus base 2, and I kind of do that mentally and then just multiply my resulting answer by either the height or the base 1, base 2. And finally, circles. Next week is pi week, so we'll be dealing with circles. The key indicators on here is you need your D for diameter or your R for radius, and radius is just half of the diameter. Diameter goes all the way across, radius just goes to the center. So circumference is a measure of perimeter. That's the distance around the circle. That's pi times d. We'll use 3.14 for pi, even though it is an irrational number that equals a lot more than that. You could also say circumference is equal to, if I had just the radius and not the diameter, 2 times the radius times pi, or 2 pi r, and the area is equal to pi r squared. Okay. So 3 simple steps. First, to work out perimeter, circumference, area squared, identify the shape. That's all you have to do is say what type of shape you have, find its formula, and once you've done that, use the formula to determine the relevant information. So there are only specific numbers that you're going to use. You can put that in parentheses, specific, oops, sorry about that, specific numbers. Plug in your measurements into the formula and solve. All right, so 3 simple steps. That's the end of part 1.